Okay, so I want to do a quick video on the 3 cutting tools that you can use. I don't have a saw because I don't normally use one. But these tools are so inexpensive nowadays, whether you go corded or cordless on a circular saw. It all depends on what you guys want to do, but they all function the same. So let me just show you. So on your circular saw, you're always going to have something that's going to allow you to move the guard. Kind of hard to do this with one hand, but to move the guard in a way that it's going to cut angles for what you're cutting. You're also going to have a leverage in the back that's going to allow you to cut for the depth, and the depth is important because let's just say this was a piece of wood. You don't want your blade hanging out more than just maybe a little bit past what you're cutting, or you can cause like a cutback. So you don't want the teeth just a little bit below whatever you're cutting. This is just for example, obviously. But so you have a depth gauge and you have your angles that you can cut for your different degree that you need to cut. The miter is the same thing. This particular one is a little bit of a cheaper one. I think I bought this for 50 bucks at Walmart. I do have a bigger Makita one that I use when I'm cutting bigger trims. This miter saw in particular is made specifically to cut 2x4s. So I don't know if it has a depth stop. It may not. But to change the direction for your degrees, you have that right there. And then finally, you have a table saw. This is from Harbor Freight. Down here, you're going to raise and lower the blade with this little crank here, and then you have this attachment that turns the blade the degree you want. Now, I'm gonna say between the 3, if you need to buy one, I would go with a circular saw and I would go with a cordless circular saw if possible. They're not that expensive anymore because everybody makes one and everybody makes something. Again, you can go to Harbor Freight, you can get Ryobi if that's in your budget. You can go with DeWalt, Makita. They have great deals on combo tools. But this one is obviously the biggest one, and it's going to take a lot to carry around, whether you're doing this for jobs or you're doing it for repairs. And this one, to be honest, is better just to rip sheets of drywall or rip 2x4. And what I mean by rip, it means just cutting a straight line up and down rather than cutting it cutting off on pieces. This is pretty good. The miter saw is pretty good. Again, it's a lot bigger than carrying the circular saw. And depending if you need a depth stop, you may or may not have one. Obviously, if you're cutting by 2x4s, it doesn't really matter. And then finally, like I said, with this one, it's portable. It's easy to carry. It'll cut whatever you need to cut. It doesn't matter how big the board is. It doesn't matter if you got to rip it. It doesn't matter if it's a 2x6, a 2x4, a 2x12. It'll cut right through it. The only other thing are the blades themselves. So on all these right now, I have, they're just framing blades, which means the teeth are bigger and the cuts aren't as nice. They do have what are called finished blades, I believe. They're smaller teeth with smaller gaps, and they give you more of a clean edge. So if you're doing mill work, trim, something like that, that's going to be more exposed. It gives you a cleaner finish. So that's it on the different types of saws. Okay, so in this video, just for training purposes, what I want to do is, regardless of what tool you're going to use to cut your studs for your framing, I'm just going to show you how each of them work, just so you guys can get an idea. So I'm going to make sure this is on 0 degrees, which makes it flat. I'm going to bring this down to 1.5, because that's the thickness of this. So I'm gonna line it up right here on this line where it says 0 degrees. That's your first one. My second one, I have my line cut. I'm gonna do a practice drop. I'm gonna slide it over just where the teeth are, right about where the line's at. I have a safety button. I'm gonna go ahead and hit it. Okay, there's two. And then the third one. Now this one, I don't have my guard on. I do have a push stick that's gonna help me to push it. So this one's gonna be the loudest one. So they all cut the same. They all do the same cuts. I highly recommend using eye gear, PPE, protection equipment. So eye gear and things like that. I'm gonna cut my studs and then we'll get into the next frame.